The ravens flew fast, but not as fast as Robb Stark's anger. When the news came to River Run that Ned Stark had been executed, Robb didn't speak for hours. He just stared at the cold flames in the hearth, fists clenched, jaw tight, heart burning. His father was dead, killed like a traitor, and his sister Sansa was still trapped in the Lion's Den, King's Landing. Everyone told him it was too dangerous, that saving Sansa would risk everything. That war needed focus, strategy, patience. But Robb couldn't sleep. Each time he closed his eyes, he saw Sansa's face in King's Landing, surrounded by enemies, all alone. He had lost his father. He would not lose his sister, too. Robb called a secret council that night. Only a few were trusted. Grey Wind, his direwolf who never left his side, Catelyn Stark, his mother who was broken but strong, Jon Umber the Greatjon, and Theon Greyjoy, who had grown up with Robb and still believed they were brothers. "I'm going to King's Landing," Robb said simply. Like it was no big thing. Everyone stared. To fight? Jon Umber asked, half excited, half confused. "No," Robb said. "To get Sansa out." Catelyn looked at him like he had gone mad. "That city is full of spies, soldiers, and Lannister lies. How will you even get inside?" Robb's eyes were colder than the north. "I won't ride in as a king. I'll go as a ghost." That night plans began. "Quiet ones!" Small pieces moved. Robb left the war in the hands of Roose Bolton and his bannermen, knowing it was a risk. He left his banners and armor behind. He cut his hair, grew a beard, and took the name Rowan, a sellsword from the Stormlands. Only a handful knew the truth. Even his bannermen thought he was gone to speak with the Freys. But Robb had one mission now: rescue Sansa Stark from the Lannisters before they broke her completely. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Sansa Stark was surviving by silence. She had learned to nod when Queen Cersei spoke, to smile when Joffrey mocked her, and to weep only when no one was watching. After Ned's death, she had become a prisoner in a golden cage. She walked the halls like a ghost, haunted by whispers and cruel laughter. But she hadn't given up hope. Not yet. She remembered her father's voice, her mother's smile, Arya's wild laughter, and Robb's promise. He had once told her when they were children, "If anything ever happens, I'll protect you." She had held on to those words like a prayer. One day, while walking in the gardens with Ser Boros Blount following like a shadow, Sansa saw something strange. A sellsword she had never seen before stood near the fountain, feeding ravens with old bread. He looked dirty, tired, and sunburnt. Not northern at all. But when their eyes met, her heart skipped. She didn't know how, but she knew that face. That night she found a note in her chambers. It was folded and hidden inside her embroidery basket. 2 nights from now. Blackwater Sept, trust no one. There was no name, but the handwriting was unmistakable. She had seen it 100 times growing up in Winterfell. It was Robb. Tears filled her eyes, not from sadness this time, but from the tiny, dangerous spark of hope. The next 2 days felt like years. She played her part, smiled at Joffrey's cruel jokes, and acted like nothing had changed. But inside, she was on fire. Robb was alive. Robb was here. He hadn't forgotten her, and 2 nights later, when the bells rang midnight and the city slept, Sansa made her quiet escape. She wore a servant's cloak, head low, and walked like a ghost through the shadows. Every step was a risk, every corner a trap. But then, in the cold dark of the Blackwater Sept, she saw him. He stepped out from behind a column, older, harder, but still Robb. "Sansa," he whispered. She dropped the cloak and ran to him, holding him like she'd never let go. "You came," she whispered. "I promised, but the city wasn't asleep. And the Lannisters weren't blind." Sansa didn't know how long she held onto Robb, but it felt like all her fear had spilled out into his arms. For the first time since her father's death, she felt safe. For the first time since King's Landing, she felt like herself again. But Robb wasn't here to comfort her. He was here to get her out, and time was already against them. "We have to move," Robb whispered. "Guards make rounds every half hour. We've got 15 minutes. Sansa nodded quickly. Her legs were shaking, but she followed without a sound. Robb handed her a bundle of clothes, dark leathers, a worn cloak, soft boots. She dressed like a boy. her hair hidden under a cap, and followed Robb through the back door of the sept. The streets of King's Landing were quiet, but not safe. Shadows moved in alleyways. Dogs barked from rooftops. The city had a hunger to it, a kind of cruelty that never truly slept. Robb led her through narrow paths, ducking into darkness whenever a patrol passed. They crossed the Blackwater Rush at its thinnest point, using an old boat hidden in the reeds. It was small and barely floated, but it carried them across. "I thought you were at war," Sansa whispered, shivering from the cold river breeze. "I am," Robb said. "But your family. I'll burn all of Westeros before I let them break you." Sansa didn't answer. She wanted to. She wanted to tell him what they had done to her. How Joffrey made her kneel in front of his court, how Cersei watched her like a hawk, how the people spat at her because they believed her father was a traitor. But she couldn't. The words wouldn't come. Not yet. They rode in silence once they reached the stables outside the city. 2 horses waited, hidden under a low roof, saddled and ready. Robb had planned this for weeks. He had bought papers, forged sigils, even paid a blacksmith to make armor with the sigil of House Dondarrion, pretending they were loyal knights of the Stormlands. But none of that would help them now, if they got caught. "We ride north by the Kingswood, then cut through the Stormlands. It'll be slower but safer than the King's Road," Robb explained as they galloped into the dark. Hours passed. The stars blinked above them, and the moon guided their way. Sansa's hands hurt from gripping the reins, and her thighs were sore from riding, but she didn't complain. She would ride to the ends of the world if it meant freedom, but by dawn trouble came. 3 riders appeared on the hill behind them, fast and silent. Robb saw them first. "Don't look back. Just ride," he said sharply. Sansa obeyed, but fear crawled up her spine. Who were they? Gold cloaks? Lannister knights? Or worse, bounty hunters? They rode hard for an hour, but the riders behind them didn't fall back. Robb led her into a thick patch of forest, then suddenly pulled his horse to a stop near a ruined tower. "Get down," he said. Sansa slid off her horse, legs wobbling. Robb handed her a knife. "Small, sharp, cold. Stay behind that wall. If anyone comes near you, don't hesitate." Her breath hitched. "Robb, I'll be fine," he said, but his eyes said otherwise. "Whatever happens, don't let them take you back." Then he was gone, vanishing into the trees like a shadow. Sansa crouched behind the stone wall, heart hammering in her chest. Minutes passed. Then steel clashed. She heard the sounds, swords meeting, men shouting, the whine of horses. A scream, short, sharp, and silenced. Another crash. Then nothing. The silence was worse than the fight. Sansa waited, hand on her knife, breathing hard. Then a figure limped out of the trees. It was Robb. Blood dripped down his arm, and his lip was split, but he was alive. Behind him 2 horses stood riderless. One of the men lay dead under a tree. The third had fled. Robb barely spoke as he mounted his horse again. "We have to keep moving." Sansa climbed up beside him, feeling his pain, even though he said nothing. He was wounded, not badly, but enough. Still, he rode like it didn't matter. They traveled for 2 more days, hiding during the daylight, moving only at night. Sansa tended to his wounds when they stopped, her hands shaking but careful. He didn't wince. "You've changed," he said one night as they sat under an old oak tree. "So have you," she replied. They didn't say more, but that night, as they drifted into sleep, Robb whispered a promise. "You're going to be safe, Sansa, even if it kills me." 3 more days passed as they traveled deeper into the Stormlands, hiding in ruined towers, empty villages, and old sept ruins. The world outside King's Landing was broken and starving. Smoke rose from burned farms. Wolves howled in the hills. Robb kept his sword drawn more often than she liked. Sansa had seen the worst of men in the Red Keep, but now she saw the worst of war. They passed a village where a mother buried her baby in the mud, while 2 broken men fought over the last crust of bread. Sansa looked away, but Robb didn't. He stared at it all like it was being carved into him. Deeper and deeper, he was changing. The Robb she remembered was gone. In his place was a man of iron and silence, but under it all she could feel the storm inside him. Rage, guilt, pain. It wasn't just the war or her rescue. It was what he had lost. One night, while hiding in a cave by a stream, Sansa finally asked him, "Do you blame me?" Robb looked at her, confused. "For what?"
For father.
"For everything. I wrote that letter. I stayed loyal to Joffrey. I begged mercy. And then I stayed." Her voice cracked. Robb's face hardened, then softened. He said nothing for a long time, then sat beside her. "I was angry at first," he admitted.
Not at you.
"At myself, at everyone. But mostly, I was angry I couldn't protect you." Sansa looked away, tears burning. "I should have known better. You were a girl surrounded by monsters. I should have burned that city down when they touched you." His voice was cold when he said it. Too cold. But before she could respond, they heard something. Hooves, not far, a group. 10 men at least. Robb grabbed his sword and looked through the trees. Damn it. Sansa tensed. "What is it?" "The gold cloaks. They've found our trail, but we've been so careful. They're not following signs. They're following someone." Robb clenched his jaw. "We were betrayed." They mounted fast, but Robb's wound had reopened from the rush. His shoulder was bleeding again. He hid the pain, but Sansa saw it. They galloped through the woods, branches slashing past them, hooves thundering over dry leaves. Robb led her toward a hill where an abandoned holdfast stood. "We make a stand there," he said. "We can't outrun them." "No, and they'll find us no matter where we hide." Sansa didn't argue. Not this time. They reached the old stone tower just as the riders appeared at the forest line. Lannister red, gold cloaks, and leading them was a man Sansa thought she'd never see again, Sandor Clegane. The Hound! He rode at the front, towering in armor, burned face twisted in a tired snarl. "7 hells," Robb muttered, blade in hand. Sansa's breath caught in her throat. "He was Joffrey's dog, but he once helped me." The Hound rode closer, holding up a hand. "Stark," he called. "Enough running. The Queen wants the girl alive. You. Maybe not." Robb raised his sword, blood dripping down his fingers. "You'll have to kill me to get her," the Hound laughed. "I expected nothing less." Then he dismounted, alone, and threw down his helmet. "I ain't here to fight." Robb and Sansa exchanged a glance. "What do you want?" Robb asked. "I want out," Sandor growled. "Out of this cursed war, out of this sick world. I've seen what they're doing to girls like her in the capital. What they'll do if she's dragged back." He looked at Sansa now. "I saved you once. Not for honor, not for gold. Just because I hated the boy who hit you." Sansa's voice was a whisper. "Why are you here now?" Sandor spat. "Because the world don't need another wolf torn apart by lions. I'll give you 10 minutes. Then I ride back and tell them you were never here?" "Why would you do that?" Robb asked sharply. Sandor's eyes, bloodshot and tired, met his. "Because I've got nothing left to lose. And I hate Lannisters more than I hate you." He turned, picked up his helmet and walked back toward his horse. Then paused. "North of the Trident, there's a man who owes me a favor. Black tent, no sigil. Name's Beric Dondarrion. Find him. He'll get you across the river." And just like that, the Hound was gone. Robb exhaled slowly. Sansa stared at the trees. "Do you trust him?" "No," Robb said. "But I believe him." They rode at once, heading north. Hearts racing, but they weren't just running anymore. They were hunted. They rode like shadows through the dying woods, the moon guiding them deeper into the stormlands. Robb's injury slowed them down, but he never said a word about it. Sansa could see him getting paler each day, his movements stiffer, his grip on the reins tightening in pain. But he kept riding, like stopping would kill him faster than the wound. Sansa tried to help. She wrapped his shoulder with what little cloth they had, pressed herbs into the flesh, whispered soft words she never thought she'd say to a man bleeding for her. They followed Sandor Clegane's words north, riding past burned villages and empty fields. On the 5th night they saw it, a black tent near the Trident River, just as the Hound had said. It was quiet, no banners, just a single flame burning beside the flap. Robb dismounted, his sword sheathed but close. "Stay behind me," he told her. She nodded and followed. Inside the tent sat Beric Dondarrion, his eye covered by a dark patch, his face older and rougher than she remembered. He looked up from his fire, surprised, then slowly smiled. Well, if it isn't the young wolf walking right into my fire. And with a Stark girl, too. He stood, tall and thin like a ghost. We need safe passage, Robb said directly. You owe Sandor a favor. Beric scratched his beard. That I do. Never thought he'd come back to bite me like this. He poured them each a bit of wine, bitter and smoky but warm. Sansa drank it too quickly, her hands shaking from days of cold and fear. We need to cross the Trident tonight, Robb said. No banners, no eyes. Beric's face darkened. That's no easy task. The rivers watched. Frey scouts have been sniffing around like dogs. They're looking for you. Let them, Robb growled. We'll cross anyway. Beric hesitated, then nodded. There's a path downriver. Hidden ford. Old smugglers used it before the war. I'll send a man to guide you, Robb sighed in relief. But Sansa didn't relax. Something about Beric's eyes felt off. Too sharp, too calm. That night, as they rested in a corner of the camp, Robb dozed from the fever in his wound. Sansa stayed awake, eyes wide, heart unsettled. Then she heard them, whispers outside the tent. Two voices low, careful. It's her. Sansa Stark, the reward's real. 10,000 gold dragons. If we wait till they cross, we'll lose them. Lannister gold, sir. Enough to rebuild what's left of our lives. Sansa's breath caught. They were going to sell them out. She didn't think. She grabbed Robb's arm and shook him. Wake up! Now! He groaned, eyes clouded with fever. What is it? They're going to betray us. I heard them. We have to go, now. Robb sat up fast, ignoring the pain. His hand went straight to his sword. Sansa packed fast, grabbed the water skin and what little food they had. The moment they stepped out, a torch swung their way. Where are you going? Asked a tall man guarding the path. Not Beric, a younger one. Robb's blade was out before he finished speaking. Out of our way, the man stepped forward. We were told to keep you here till dawn. Robb didn't wait. With a swift strike, the man fell. Blood spilled into the dirt and a shout rang out from the other tent. They're running! Sansa and Robb sprinted to the horses and mounted. A crossbow bolt flew past them, barely missing Sansa's leg. She didn't scream. She didn't flinch. She just rode. The trees closed around them, the night swallowing their path. Robb pushed his horse despite the blood soaking his sleeve. They rode for hours, following the sound of the river, until finally they reached a narrow crossing point. Shallow water flowing gently across dark rocks. An old stone marker lay half-sunken in the mud. This is it, Robb said, breathless. The ford. Behind them, voices echoed in the woods. They were being chased. No time to rest. Cross. They entered the river, water rising past their knees. Sansa's teeth chattered, but she kept going. Halfway across, Robb's horse stumbled, almost falling. His body slumped. Robb! She jumped off and ran through the water, grabbing his arm. His eyes were open, but his skin was pale as ice. I'm fine, he muttered. Just dizzy. He wasn't fine. He was burning up. The wound had turned black at the edges, but there was no time. They crossed, and behind them torches lit the woods. Beric's men had followed. They didn't want to capture them now. They wanted them dead. They barely made it across. The Trident River flowed behind them, dark and cold, hiding their trail for a moment, just long enough to breathe. But they could hear the shouts from the other side. The torches moved like red stars in the trees. Beric's men had crossed too, farther up the bank. They weren't letting them go. Sansa helped Robb down from his horse. He was burning hot now, sweating and shaking, his lips cracked, eyes wild with fever. His wound, the one from the riders days ago, had festered. The cloth was soaked through with pus and blood. He could barely stand. We need shelter, she whispered, holding him up. They were on the river's northern edge now, Frey territory, but not yet the twins. The land was rough, hilly, full of caves and old ruins. They found a hollow under a fallen stone ridge, deep enough to hide from sight. Sansa built a small fire with trembling hands, while Robb slumped against the wall. His half open. He looked worse than she'd ever seen anyone look. You're going to be all right, she lied. Just rest. I'll find help, Robb laughed weakly. Sansa, there's no help here. I don't care, she said fiercely. You saved me. I'm not letting you die. She left before dawn, sneaking through the woods like a shadow, her dagger in hand. She walked for hours, her legs numb, heart pounding. She didn't know who she was anymore. A high-born lady of the north. A hunted fugitive. A girl willing to kill for her brother. She found smoke curling from a chimney at the edge of the forest. A small hut. A lonely place, dangerous. Still she knocked. The door creaked open, revealing an old woman with pale eyes and hands full of herbs. "Who are you?" the woman asked. "I need help," Sansa said. "My brother is dying." The woman stared, then opened the door wider. Inside, the hut smelled of wet moss, garlic, and smoke. Strange roots hung from the ceiling. Old books were stacked in corners. The woman moved slowly, but with purpose. "Bring him," she said. "Before the fever eats his soul." Sansa didn't wait. She ran back, heart racing, praying Robb was still alive. He was, barely. She tied him to his horse, whispering apologies each time he groaned, then led them back through the forest, pulling the reins with shaking hands. The old woman helped get him inside, laid him on a wooden table, and began cutting away the bandages. "Rotten flesh," she muttered. "If he lasts the night, he might see another sunrise." Sansa stayed beside him, holding his hand, brushing the sweat from his brow. That night, as the storm rolled over the hills, Robb Stark opened his eyes and whispered a name. Grey Wind. Sansa didn't understand. "What?" He coughed, then grabbed her wrist tightly. "They killed him," he said. "At the twins, in my dream. I saw it. They put his head on my body." She stared at him, horror filling her chest. "Robb, what are you saying?" But he was already slipping again, eyes fluttering, breath shallow. The old woman returned, wiping blood from her hands. "He's fighting death, girl. But death's already licking at his heels." Sansa didn't sleep. Not that night. Not with his words echoing in her head. At dawn, a knock came at the door. 3 soft knocks, then silence. The old woman froze. Sansa stood, heart pounding. Another knock, then a voice. "You've taken in a wolf. We want him." It wasn't Beric, it wasn't Lannister soldiers, it was Frey men. "They found us," the old woman hissed. Sansa drew her dagger and backed toward Robb. But the door burst open. 3 men stepped in, wearing patchwork armor, Frey sigils on their cloaks. "Blades drawn. Step aside, girl," one said. "This doesn't concern you." Sansa stood in front of Robb. "You'll have to kill me first." The man smiled. "Gladly." But before he could move, a blur came crashing through the window. Massive, grey, snarling, Grey Wind, or something like him. The direwolf slammed into the man, tearing him apart before the others even screamed. Blood hit the walls. Sansa ducked as chaos exploded in the tiny hut. The wolf tore through the Frey men like cloth, then silence. The beast turned to her, its yellow eyes glowing in the dim light. Its fur was torn, marked with old scars. It looked wrong. Not alive, not dead. Sansa stared, breath frozen. Grey Wind. The wolf didn't growl, didn't move. Then it turned and walked out into the fog. Robb stirred. Sansa rushed to him. "You're safe now," she said, choking back tears. But Robb's eyes opened wide, focused on the door. "I saw him," he whispered. "He came back for me." Robb's fever broke the next morning, not slowly, violently. One moment he was burning up. The next he jolted awake, gasping like a man pulled from drowning. His eyes, once clouded with sickness, now burned with something different, something sharp, almost. Unprimal, Sansa sat by his side, stunned. "You're awake," she whispered, afraid to move. He looked around the room like seeing it for the first time. Then his eyes found her and softened. "Sansa," she smiled, tears welling. "You were dying." "I know." He touched his shoulder. The wound was clean, red, but not festering. "What happened?" Sansa told him everything. About the old woman, the fever, the Freys who came, and the creature that saved them. When she mentioned the wolf, Robb froze. "You said it was Grey Wind." She nodded slowly. "It looked like him. But different, bigger, older, and wrong." Robb stood, swaying slightly, but stronger than he had any right to be. "He came to me," he said, "in my dreams. Every night, running through snow, hunting, bleeding, and then a voice calling me north." "North?" Sansa repeated. "We're barely alive and you want to go north?" Robb turned to her, eyes intense. "This isn't just war anymore. Something's waking. I can feel it. We're not just hunted by men now. Sansa shivered. She remembered the way the direwolf moved, how the air had gone cold when it entered, how the fire in the hearth had nearly died without reason. They couldn't stay here. They left the hut before noon, thanking the old woman with what little coin they had. She didn't say much, just looked at Robb like she saw a ghost in his skin. You were touched by something, she said. Something old. Be careful, Wolf. They traveled northward with caution. The Freys would still be hunting them. The Lannisters, too. But now something else stirred in the wind. The air grew colder with each step. The trees whispered. The birds had gone silent. Robb's strength returned faster than it should have. He didn't limp anymore. His wound barely bled. Sansa noticed how animals stared at him as he passed, how dogs in villages whimpered and backed away, how crows circled above them like they were waiting for something to die. And at night, Robb didn't sleep. He stood guard without blinking, watching the woods. One evening, they found shelter in an abandoned watchtower near the edge of the neck. The walls were crumbling, but the roof held. Inside, as Sansa tried to rest, she heard Robb muttering. She crept closer. He wasn't talking to her. He was whispering to something that wasn't there. No, not yet. She's not ready. I know what I am. She stepped into the room, heart racing. Robb? He turned slowly. I didn't want you to hear that. Who were you talking to? He didn't answer. You're scaring me, she said, voice cracking. I'm scared too, he admitted. But I feel like I died that night, Sansa, when I fell in the river. Everything went black. Then something pulled me back. Not the gods, not a maester. Something old, something northern. Sansa stepped back. What do you mean? I think Grey Wind came back and brought me with him. She couldn't breathe. That's impossible. Robb smiled faintly. We were always close. More than anyone knew, I could feel what he felt. When he died, I felt it like I was dying too. But now, he's in me. Or I'm in him. I don't know. But I'm not just Robb Stark anymore. Silence filled the room. Then Robb reached for her hand, his touch warm, human. But I'm still your brother. And I swear on everything, I will get you home. Sansa looked at him, eyes wide with fear and love. Outside, the wind howled. That night she dreamed of Winterfell, but not as she remembered it. The halls were dark, the snow red. Wolves paced the walls, and in the great hall, Robb sat on the throne, eyes golden, a crown of bones on his head. She woke up screaming. Robb rushed to her side, but she flinched. I'm sorry, he said, voice shaking, but in the candlelight his shadow wasn't human. It was a wolf. They left the ruined watchtower at dawn. The world outside had changed. It wasn't just the cold, it was the stillness. The trees no longer moved with the wind, yet they creaked like they were watching. Even the crows didn't caw anymore. They perched silently, heads cocked, like judges waiting for a sentence to be passed. Robb said nothing as they rode. His eyes were sharp, scanning the woods with a sense that went beyond sight. Sansa hadn't spoken of the dream. She didn't need to. He knew, and now she noticed things she hadn't before. His footsteps didn't make sound. His wounds healed too quickly. His breath came too slow. Sometimes he didn't blink for minutes. They were nearing the neck now, that cursed stretch of swampland between the south and north. If they crossed it, they would be back in Stark lands. But the Freys controlled many of the paths. They would have to go through the bogs, where the mud could eat a man whole. Their horses struggled, hooves sinking deep. Fog clung to the ground like smoke. Sansa's heart pounded with every step, half expecting a blade or a Frey arrow to pierce the mist. And then they heard it, singing low and strange, words in the old tongue. It echoed off the water. Robb halted. We're being followed. Sansa looked around. I don't see anyone. You won't, he said. But they're close. From the fog came a boat gliding soundlessly toward them. A single figure stood at the bow, wrapped in a cloak of green leaves and moss. His eyes gleamed like a frog's, wide and still. Starks of Winterfell, the man croaked. You walk deep into cursed mud. Robb stepped forward. Who are you? A servant of the Crannogman, the figure said. A friend of Howland Reed. He knows of your escape. He sent me to guide you. Robb tensed. How does he know we're alive? The trees whisper, the man replied. And there are old powers that still protect your blood. Sansa stepped beside Robb. Can we trust him? Robb stared at the man for a long moment, then nodded. Howland Reed fought with our father. If he's truly behind this, we have no better hope. They boarded the boat, leaving the horses behind. The Crannogman pulled the boat through the swamp, silent as a ghost. Hours passed. Water everywhere. Reeds as tall as towers. Mist thick as wool. The Crannogman finally spoke. He knows what you've become. Robb turned slowly. What do you mean? You carry the wolf inside, not just the spirit. The bond goes deeper now. When you crossed the river, something ancient crossed with you. You died, but death didn't claim you. Sansa went pale. So, he's not alive? The man looked at her. He is, but not entirely as he was. Robb didn't argue. He only stared into the water. The boat stopped beside a thick tree. In its trunk was a door, carved with runes, a hidden grove. Inside, an old fire burned. And sitting beside it was a man Sansa didn't recognize, until he stood. Howland Reed, Robb said. The man was short, thin, but strong-eyed. Robb, Sansa, you've come far. He offered them stew, warmth. Silence. Then he said what no one wanted to say. They'll come for you again, he told Robb. Not just the Freys, not just the Lannisters. The gods are watching you now. You crossed their line. Robb asked, What am I? Howland sighed. A dead king touched by the old gods. With a wolf's soul wrapped around your own. Can I be saved? No, he said. But you can still save her. He looked at Sansa. There is a path through the bogs, hidden, ancient. It leads north of the twins. You can take her home. But once she's safe, you must make a choice. What choice? She asked. To return to Winterfell. Or to return to the woods, Howland said. If you go back, Robb, you'll never be fully a man again. You'll become something else. Something the North hasn't seen in centuries. A wolf king. A ghost prince of the forest, Robb nodded. I've already felt it. And if I don't return to the woods... You'll go mad, Howland said gently. The bond will consume you. You'll tear your way through Winterfell like a beast. You'll become the thing they fear. Sansa grabbed Robb's hand. There must be another way. There isn't, Howland said. This is the price for coming back from death. Silence followed. That night, Robb stood alone in the grove, staring at the stars. Sansa joined him. I won't leave you, she said. You might have to, he whispered. One way or another. The next morning, they prepared to cross the final stretch, but behind them, in the swamp, something else had entered. The bog, not Freys, not Lannisters. Something. Colder, older, walking on dead feet. The North was calling, but... So was death. They moved at dawn. Robb and Sansa followed the Crannogman through the hidden bog paths, deeper into the neck, with thick mist rising around their feet like ghosts. The air was colder now, too cold. Not the kind that came with autumn. This was unnatural, sharp, dead. Even the trees seemed to lean away from it. Robb felt it first. They're close, he whispered. Sansa tightened her cloak. The Freys? Robb shook his head slowly. Worse. Behind them the mist shifted unnaturally. There was no wind. Yet the fog moved like it had fingers. And then they heard the first sound. Not footsteps. Bones cracking. The Crannogman froze mid-step. No, from the reeds figures emerged, slowly, one by one. Pale, wet bodies, eyes glowing blue, clothes tattered. Frey scouts, but not alive. White as... Sansa gasped and stepped back, nearly falling into the mud. Robb drew his sword. His hands were steady, but his eyes flickered golden again, like something else inside him was waking. The Crannogman hissed, They shouldn't be here. This far south, this isn't right. It's not just them, Robb said darkly. The cold ones are here too. The bogs exploded into chaos. The whites came fast, too fast. Robb met them head-on, blade flashing in a blur of silver and blood. His wounds no longer slowed him. His strikes were savage, too savage. He didn't fight like a man. He fought like a wolf unchained. Beside him, Sansa grabbed a spear from the boat and jabbed at one crawling from the water. She screamed as it grabbed her leg, but Robb ripped it off before it could bite, tearing it in half like a beast. But then the mist darkened. A silence fell, heavy, choking. Even the whites paused, and then he appeared tall, pale, wearing armor like ice and bone, eyes like frozen moons, a white walker. Sansa staggered back, mouth dry. "What is that?" The Crannog man whispered, "A general of death." Robb stepped between it and Sansa. The White Walker stared at him, not with hatred, with recognition. And then, in a language that cracked the air, it spoke. "You don't belong among them." Robb didn't flinch. The Walker raised its blade, long, curved and glowing with frost. Robb raised his. They clashed. Steel met ice, and the sound rang across the bog like thunder. Sparks flew. Robb struck again and again, faster than a man should move. But the Walker matched him with cold grace, each blow sharper, each step slower. Patient Sansa could only watch, horror-struck. Robb's eyes blazed. His movements weren't just skill, they were instinct. He moved like grey wind now, feral, furious, his growl mixed with the ringing of steel. Then came the moment. The Walker raised his blade for a killing blow, but Robb stepped into it, let the frost pierce his, sighed, and drove his sword through the Walker's heart. The creature let out a shriek that shook the trees. It crumbled into shards of ice, scattered in the mud. But Robb fell to one knee, clutching his side. Sansa ran to him, screaming his name. He looked up, smiling faintly, blood on his lips. "I had to end it." More whites began to crumble, falling as the magic broke with their master's death. The Crannog man grabbed Sansa's arm. "We must go, now. The way is open." Sansa turned to Robb, tears streaking down her face. "Come on, we're almost there." But he didn't move. His skin was pale now. Not from blood loss, from something else. "I can't go back, Sansa," he said softly. "I told you." "No," she whispered, shaking her head. "You saved me." "You're coming home." "I am home," he said. "Here, in the mud, in the trees, in the north." She clutched his hand. It was already cold. "I love you," she said. He smiled. "Then remember me. Not like this, but as your brother, the one who would have burned the world to keep you safe." And then he pulled her into a hug, tight, strong, and final. When she pulled away, his eyes had closed, but his face was peaceful. Behind her, the mist cleared. The way to the north was open. Winterfell waited. She rose, numb, and followed the Crannogman. They crossed the final stretch in silence, and as they reached the hill overlooking the northern woods, a lone wolf howled behind them. She turned, but nothing was there, just trees and wind and memory. The North remembered, not just the living, but the lost, and the ones who gave everything to bring their family home.